There we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our Brave SHERO interview with Maggie Munoz. I have Maggie here live streaming with me. And so we're going to share a little bit about Maggie's story and, some of the challenges that she went through and some of the adversities that she went through and she overcame. So feel free to engage with Maggie, comment, ask questions, be engaged as much as possible. A little bit about Maggie. I'm looking at her bio here. I'm sneaking. So she's also a Pilsen lady. Yay! I'm a Pilsen lady too. And so there's a couple of things here for Maggie. So Maggie was considered a troubled kid. And she was a high school dropout. Was enrolled in 5 different high schools. At the early age of 17, she decided to go back and get her GED. Good for her. And she did marry a total stranger at around 18 years old, right? Moved out of her parents' house and went solo. And then you became homeless, right, Maggie?
I did. Yes, so I did.
A couple of things happened there. So tell us a little bit more about you, Maggie. What are some of those struggles, some of those uncomfortable things that you had to go through? And how did you get to a point where now you're an educational consultant now? Teaching parents how to work with their kids and also teaching parents how to work with teenagers. So tell us a little bit about you, Maggie.
Okay, well, I was raised in a very super highly dysfunctional family. My father was an alcoholic and my mother was a workaholic. And I don't think she had much of a choice, but there were 5 of us, so she had to pay for everything and everybody. And there was all types of abuse going on, physical abuse, verbal abuse, negligence. We were hungry. It was bad. It was really bad. So throughout that, I was always taught that you just keep going. Your father comes home drunk, you don't sleep all night, he makes a mess of the house, but you just show up to school and you still act right and you do right and you come home and you do what you're supposed to do. I don't think that's really too common nowadays where kids are that resilient.
Yes.
So in my college years, I studied resilience. How do people get to be resilient? Why some people can overcome some things and why some people can't. So that's what I started doing. And then as a teacher, I worked with middle school kids in the Midway area. And I got to see a lot of different dynamics going on. And that's where I kind of became a counselor, right? Like I didn't study for counseling, but that's what I did. So I started talking to parents about, look, I see this in your child. Why don't you try X, Y, and Z? And because I was more concerned about their life trajectory than their academics. Not that academics weren't important, but they're not as important as having the resilience and the life skills to succeed, right? You could learn math facts, but that's not really going to get you as far as having life skills.
Yeah.
So I started working with parents. Wow. And I think that's where I kind of got started.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about some of that resilience that you built, Maggie, along the way, and some of those things that you had to face. I mean, being homeless I read on your bio, you had 3 children at the time. Is that correct? 4. Okay.
4.
Wow.
I had a newborn.
Tell us about that experience.
I had a newborn. He was like 2 weeks old. I had a 1-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 6-year-old when I became homeless. And that's because when I got into a relationship with this person, he wasn't a drug addict, but then he became a drug addict. And my family didn't like him, so they cut me off. So then I didn't have my family and I didn't have him. And you know what he told me? He said, "Where are you going? You have nowhere to go. Like, I didn't have an education. I didn't have a job. I didn't have a family. Like, where are you going?" So I left anyway, because I thought anything is better than being here. Because I didn't want my kids to see the same dysfunction that I saw growing up.
Yes, I understand.
Yeah. So
Wow.
my resilience, more than anything, I think was my faith in God, really.
Powerful. Yes.
Yeah.
That's definitely a solid foundation.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
tell us a little bit about, you also said that you were a troubled kid. Tell us exactly what was that like, what was a troubled kid like? What happened?
Well, I fought a lot. Like I physically fought a lot on the street. I didn't pick fights, but I had so much anger built up inside of me that if anybody looked at me wrong, I was gonna punch you in the face. I wasn't gonna tell you one word. I wasn't gonna tell you all swear. I was just gonna punch you in the face. If
Oh,
you know
wow.
what I mean.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yep.
because I had a lot of anger inside of me. So I was like a ticking time bomb, and just anything could set me off, and then it was physical violence. So I ended up in jail a few times. I was a bad kid.
Oh, wow. Okay. So tell us a little bit about, you started, after you became homeless, then you decided to go back to college, right?
Yeah.
What made you make that decision? What was your aha moment? What happened there?
That was my ticket out of poverty. I knew it. Like all my life, I never felt I could depend on anybody, right? Because ideally, you would depend on your parents, right? Like on your mom and your dad to protect you, to provide for you. I didn't have that. And the person I chose, he ended up being a drug addict. So I couldn't depend on him to provide for me, to protect me either. So that's where I didn't trust anybody for anything. So I figured, I have to do it. And it's not my kid's fault that, you have no idea how much of a loser I felt like being on the street with a bunch of babies. I felt like the biggest loser on the planet. Like, how could I let this happen? So there was no other thing to do but to go back to school.
Yeah. And there's this a really cool saying that I really, really love. It says, you never know how strong you are until being strong is the only thing you could do, right?
Yeah.
And so that's a real testimony to that.
Yeah.
So while you were going through these struggles, being homeless, wanting to go back to college, were you sustaining yourself financially, or how were you keeping above water?
I get that question a lot. Back then, I don't know the way it's now, but back then you could ask for a bunch of money in student loans. And that's what I did. I asked for as much money as I could in student loans. And I got myself this little tiny basement apartment, and I paid like 6 months in advance. And we kept a very poor diet, like it was oatmeal and bananas and spaghetti, things that don't cost a lot of money.
Yes.
And that was my way, to survive.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, you had a really special motive, your kids.
Yeah.
So I could just imagine. So when you started, going to college, then you became a teacher because you wanted to kind of impart some of those learnings, right? You wanted to, I guess, teach them how to effectively become, move away from that, being that considered that troubled kid, right? To that person, that could possibly do better at school. What was your reasoning to get into education?
Well, that was one of them, definitely. But a more powerful motivator for me was that I had horrible teachers. And this is what I mean when I say horrible teachers. Like, they would embarrass me because I would go to school dressed like in really ugly clothes. And we were really poor. So my brother was 3 years older than me. And when you're little, it makes a difference, right?
Yes.
So, my belt was like a shoestring. I had big, ugly boy clothes on. And my teachers would embarrass me. And I thought, you're a horrible person. I didn't say it, but I thought that. And then in high school, my teacher would scream across the hall, "Hey, Munoz, are you pregnant yet?" You know,
Wow.
and
And you know, and that does something to you, even if you
yeah.
don't want to say, you know, even if you don't want to accept it or not, but that does do something to you, especially when you have someone at, you know, who you look up to or see as a role model, you know, that's teaching you, and then they're saying certain things to you. It does affect you. So
Absolutely.
I totally understand that. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the teacher, you know, yelling out that to you.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
But you know what? I do truly believe, Maggie, that, you know, things happen for a reason. You know, different people come into your life for a reason. And sometimes you have to get uncomfortable because that's part of your journey. Guess what?
Yeah.
That journey is going to become most likely your purpose in life.
Absolutely.
So that led you to become a teacher for about
Yes.
8 years, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
then I think 8 more years after you became an educational consultant. Is that correct?
Right. Yes.
Okay. And now you have opened your own business, right? Tell us
Right.
about your business.
Well, as an education consultant, I was blessed to be able to travel the whole country, different states and school districts, from rural places to big cities, to see the needs, not only academic needs, but also social emotional needs. And I've been blessed to be able to provide them curriculum for social emotional learning for the students as an after school program or an extra credit program, and also parent universities, because
Wow. Mm-hmm. So you've been doing that for quite a while.
you know how the saying is, no se estudia about that, right? So Liz, are you there?
Yeah,
Are you frozen? Okay.
I'm still
So
here. I think you froze for just
okay.
a little bit, but you're back.
Okay. Okay, thanks. So I provide that. So I've done one-on-one coaching with parents, with, you know, kids who are rebellious, who are not doing well in school, or just they're so negative, they're depressed. And there's some really interesting statistics that I've gone back, like I said, to study resilience and depression and social emotional curriculum. And now, which is great, there's social emotional learning standards, right? But not too many people really emphasize that, because it's not math and it's not science and it's not those things that will give you a profession. But
Yeah.
in reality, you need these skills to live, especially in
Yeah.
this society.
And they tend to forget about those important, critical social skills that we need. You know, sometimes, guess what? When you're not well yourself, you're not going to learn at your best
Anything.
level, right?
No, no.
And
I've seen it in the classroom as a teacher. I've seen it as a parent, and I was that troubled kid. So I have a different perspective on. I think it's a unique perspective to see it up here as an educational consultant, to see it in the classroom, to see it as a parent and as that child myself.
Yeah, so. No, that's awesome. Yeah, because I was just going to mention that, you know, you're that kid, you're that mom, right? And then, you know, and then now you could relate to what the teachers didn't do. And now you're imparting what you do know that works, right? So what would you tell especially the moms that are in this group, what would you share to them as tips, you know, on how to more effectively work with their children or their teenage children? You know, tell us a little bit more about those tips that you might want to share.
Well, when I work with parents, more than anything, we kind of go through a uncovering process, right? To see what kind of parent you are. And the only way it works is that if we're truly transparent, if we're authentic, if we're real, right? We're honest. And sometimes it's painful, because I went through that myself. Like, oh man, like a lot of this is my fault. The way my kid is acting, it's my fault, you know, because sometimes we don't know any better. And sometimes we're just in survival mode. And I get that. I've been there. But it is what it is, you know? Sometimes you're a single parent and you have to fulfill 2 roles, and that's super hard too. There's different scenarios, right? But I want to tell you just quickly like 5 things.
Yes, go ahead.
In case you didn't know. Okay. So a lot of us, we, maybe not all the time, but sometimes we yell at our kids, right? Nos desesperan, we get frustrated, we're in a hurry, they don't listen, whatever, right? Okay, so we yell at our kids. And there's 5 things I want you to remember. So number 1, and this is all scientific, okay? Studies show that when you yell at your kid, they only act worse, okay? So there's no upside to yelling, okay? 2, that yelling changes their brain, the way their brain develops. So when they get to school, they can't learn as easily. It really does something to their brain where their sound and language processing center. So when you tell them, they don't process it well or fast. So you're actually kind of hindering them from learning, right? So you scream at them because you want them to do it, but the more you do it, the less they're able to do it. Okay?
Wow, that makes so much sense now. Now that I'm listening to this, yes, go ahead.
Okay, 3, yelling leads to depression. Okay, now a lot of times we're in a hurry to go somewhere, to church or to school or whatever, and put on your shoes, whatever. And we send them off being depressed. We send them off so they can't listen and learn. So it's horrible, right? It also leads them to depression. Right now, depression is the #1 killer of adolescents and teens, okay, in the whole world. Okay. Another one, it also affects us in our physical health, which means it changes our social, emotional learning or relationship patterns. It changes us with self-regulation. Have you seen some kids where they get mad and like me, they explode or they start crying for every little thing? They're hypersensitive, right? Those are kids that, they've been yelled at most likely, right? So they don't know how to assess the things going around them, okay? And number 5, it also causes them physical chronic pain. They develop autoimmune disease, arthritis, migraines, gastrointestinal problems. So don't yell at your kid, you know what I mean? Because it brings nothing but bad things. So even if you're mad.
Let's repeat that again. Don't yell at your kids.
Yeah. So, so this is what I ask parents, right? So usually when I'm with them doing the parent workshop or whatever, I ask them, before they leave the house, do you touch your child? For example, do you give them a high five, a fist bump, a hug, or however you relate to them? Do you do that? Okay. Usually the answer is no. Okay. And there's a whole list of questions, but another one is you should. If you don't, you should, right? Another one is at least 3 times a week, okay? You're supposed to give your kid a 20-second hug, okay? 20 seconds, at least 20 seconds. It's a number where their stress goes down, their anxiety goes down, they release endorphins, right? It's a lot of great chemical neurons go up to your brain. They have a feel-good sense of themselves, okay? Oh, wow. Another thing is, when your kid comes back from school or wherever they're at, you don't say, how was your day? Because they're going to tell you, fine, right? Or just one word, okay, right?
Yeah,
you want them to talk, right? So you say, what was the hardest part of your day today? Or you can say, did you help anybody out today? Depends on their age and depends on where you are in your relationship with them, right? Or if you could change one thing about your day, what would it be? Wow. So just engaging them in conversations and asking them open questions where they can't just answer with, okay, yes, no, or I don't know, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of things, but
these are really good tips, Maggie. I hope those of you that are watching this are taking notes because it's very helpful information. And you know what, our parents know what they know, right, from their upbringing, and sometimes it's passed on, right, Maggie? Some generational learnings and
yes. I want to tell you something really interesting. I'm like a science geek. So like I said, I've been studying this, and even moms that are pregnant, okay? So when you become a mom, whatever traumas you had, okay, this is scientific, medical science tells us that if I had a trauma, okay, and then I became pregnant, I pass that on in my DNA to my child.
And your DNA?
In my DNA, yeah. So we have to really work on ourselves to heal ourselves. And usually parents come and say, es que este niño, or, no me entiende, no hace caso. So I said, okay, I understand that. And I let them say what they need to say, what they perceive as a problem. And then we kind of back it up to start with themselves to uncover some things. And then it changes. And
that are happening with the parent, right? First.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Wow.
And it's not like I'm a counselor or anything like that. We really just focus in on your parenting style. What have you done? Right. And usually we don't spend enough time thinking about what have I done and why do I do it? Because it's just automatic. That's just the way I am, or that's just the way it is.
Yes.
So it's really interesting.
That's really, this is really interesting what you're sharing with us. So Maggie, thank you so much for the information. So what are your next big goals or your vision for the name of your business again? Can you share it again?
Yes, it's a Chiron Education Group. You can find me on Facebook. And I'm on Facebook. My website is under construction, but I'm new to this whole tech world. I usually work like person to person, like in person. But I do.
Maggie, you don't even need a website. When you're passionate about something and you have a gift for something, all you need to do is get in front of people that understand your message. That's all you need.
Yeah, I'm learning that. Yeah, so I'm brand new to all this online stuff, but I usually work.
But how can they reach you now?
Well, I'm on Facebook, Chiron Education Group. You'll see it on Facebook, and I'm also on Facebook. If you want to reach me, message me directly. I work with one-on-one parents, and I work with agencies like churches and schools, and so it depends on what they want. But if they just want to talk, I can give them a talk, or if they want a series of talks, we can do that, like a parent university, or just one-on-one, because to me, I really feel that everything I've been through in my life has prepared me for this type of work, and I'm grateful. Before I didn't see it like that, but they say hindsight is 20/20, right? When you could look back and say, wow, I overcame all that and I'm still sane.
Yes. And that's what makes you a brave SHERO. Because you've basically gone through, some adversities, and you still have pulled out that shield. We like to call it here in Be Brave, Be You. We call it the shield of faith, like Wonder Woman, when she's carrying on her shield, it's kind of like you fighting your battles and going against different obstacles, and you're still here, you're still, progressing, you're getting even better. And that's what it's all about. Right?
Yeah.
That's what it is.
I want to share something with you. When I was a teacher, I had a student in 4th grade, and I saw that he was headed toward like a really bad path, right? And he was a good kid in himself, but he just needed his mom's attention, right? He didn't feel loved. You could see it. He felt neglected, right, at home. And I talked to the mom. I said, look, he needs attention. Why don't you put him in sports where he could feel good about himself and, come to his activities? And she wasn't too interested. And then I got him again in 6th grade. And the same thing. And I said, señora, por favor, spend time with your son, do some activities, et cetera, et cetera. So I gave her some things that she could do. And she didn't. He just started going like from bad to worse, and I could identify that because that was me, right? He would get into fights on the street, I was like, oh my goodness, this is so me. So then I saw a newspaper clipping that he was in jail for homicide.
Oh wow!
And I'm sorry.
That's okay. Hey, I understand.
It's horrible because I saw this coming, and I talked to the mom, and she didn't do anything about it. So now he's in jail for years, for homicide. And I felt like, this could have been prevented. So when I do this, I think about kids like him.
Yes.
And I wish I could have done more, you know.
And you did what you could, Maggie. And that's why, you know, this type of work is very important. You know, sometimes we forget, like you mentioned, Maggie, we are so inclined to prepare tomorrow's children to have these, you know, careers and to work for, you know, jobs, but sometimes we forget about the social skills and the emotional skills too. Right. And that's so important, because, you know, if you don't treat the root of the problem at a young age, guess what? It's gonna be an adult that's wounded, you know, that needs healing. And, you know, and I could speak by experience, you know, I was one of those kids. I was bullied. You know, I also felt that I couldn't measure up to my mom's expectations. So, you know, so there's always something that could be bettered at home. It starts at home, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And hurt people hurt people.
Like you, Maggie, that's, you know, out there and teaching these, these soft skills and these important skills to tomorrow's generations. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's,
thank you for your vulnerability too. I appreciate that.
I didn't mean, but it's just, it still does something to me, you know?
Yeah, I understand. We connect with, you know, we're human beings. We connect with other beings.
Yeah.
So
I feel very blessed to be able to do this. And I just wish parents can understand, you know, to do it now rather than later. You know, they say, there's a saying that says something like, either you heal it now or you deal with it later, you know, like.
Yes. So I want to take a moment. I'm looking at the comments over here. I have my other screen. I have like two screens going on. So Maribel, Dr. Lopez is in the house. She's saying, in my parenting classes, I say we are raising tomorrow's presidents or tomorrow's criminal. Wow. It is so important to take all this information seriously. Thank you for what you do, Maggie. God bless you.
Thank you.
People hurt people. That is so true. So true. Wow. Yes. So thank you for sharing, Dr. Lopez. So Maggie, now what's so the next vision is to grow even the organization even more? Or,
yes. I'm going to invite all of you to get on my Facebook page and like it. I put or get on my email list, either way, but I send out like parenting tips. I know we're all busy, so it's like un minuto con Maggie, you know, just something really quick to kind of remember and ponder on for the week as we live this life, because, you know, we're busy, but yet we want to do the right thing, right? Yes, learn the right thing and then do it, because if we could read all the books, but if we don't do it, you know, then nada sirve, right?
Yeah. So inaction is action.
Action, right?
And you know, and we forget about that. You know, like if you're not taking action, that's still an action.
Right. Exactly. So, you know, and that's relating that not only we have kids of our own, but nephews and nieces and neighbors and cousins, and, you know, we can make a difference. We can be that person for that kid. Yes, so true. And so what would you say to that? Now let's talk about, we talked about the tips for the parents, but what would you say to that young girl that's watching you right now? Because we do have some, you know, teenage women in the group as well that, you know, like to listen in and take part of it, or even young women here in their 20s as well. So what would you say to these girls that, you know, that are listening to this information, that perhaps they're still troubled, you know, they're still going through stuff? What would you say to them? I would say seek mentorship. We're not meant to do this by ourselves. Find somebody. Reach out to me. I mean, find somebody, really. Don't do this by yourself, because it's really easy to get lost in your own thoughts and, you know, depression and your problems and your lack of resources, because when you're young, most likely we're lacking resources, right?
Yes.
Life experience. So, really connect with somebody or something that can help you, because once you connect with them, that person can connect you with somebody else or something else, and just keep going. Put one foot in front of the other. Don't look at, oh, by the time I used to do that when I used to go to the community college. I thought, oh my goodness, by the time I finish with here, and now thank God, you know what I mean? Like, I have my master's and I'm going for more, but one step at a time. Just do that next thing. Get help and do the next thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Focus at one thing at a time.
Right.
Sometimes we have these, it's good to dream. It's good to have big visions, to have, one of the things that I always say is like, if you don't, if your dream doesn't scare you, then it's not big enough. And,
Right.
a lot of us have heard that same quote, but, sometimes we do scare away, and sometimes we don't think about it as like small steps that we need to take. And the more
Right.
those little small uncomfortable steps that we take, the more it elevates us and takes us to bigger places. So
Right. Absolutely. But
yeah,
you have to connect with somebody, something,
yes,
connect, and just do the next thing.
yes,
One more
yes.
thing. That's it.
Mentors are very important, very, very
Absolutely.
important. So thank you, Maggie. Thank you for your time. Any
Thank you,
parting
Lisa.
comments? Anything that you want to share with the group?
Well, like I said, I also, if you would please, I'm going to send Lisa a link for a short survey. If you would please take it. And also, if you would connect with me. I appreciate you getting on my Facebook page, Current Education, on Facebook. And you'll see some content that's coming up on there too.
Yes,
So
yes.
thank you so much.
And I want to share a little bit about the comments that are coming through too. Maida says, I love this. I will have to rewatch because my family over here does not let me hear anything, everything. That's funny. But yeah, it's so important to just take a moment to watch the replay. And ladies, if you are watching the replay, put hashtag replay so that we know that you're listening into the content right now. If you are live, you could still say hello and share some comments. But thank you, Maggie. Thank you for your time.
Thank you
really
so much.
appreciate having you.
I'm here to serve you. So if you need anything, let me know.
Yes, thank you so much. I love your soul, and keep doing what you're doing, Maggie.
You're doing an awesome job.
Thank you, Maggie. So keep doing what you're doing. Share this with the community, because there's so many underserved communities that need so much help, and sometimes we don't know where to reach out to.
Right.
If it's not in our local newspaper, in online or somewhere accessible, we don't know that Maggie exists, right? Like, we don't know
Right,
these
that's
things.
true.
I mean, honestly, like, we don't know these things sometimes. And so I love connecting people and bringing positive messages to those that need the information. So thank you again, Maggie. Thank you for your time. And
thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome. So feel free, Maggie, to comment also, and share whatever links you want to share, the survey, whatever you want to share with the group. And ladies, also for those of you that are watching live or watching the replay, feel free to connect with Maggie. She has some awesome insights with parenting techniques. So thank you so much for watching, and have a great night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.